it's April. And because of my reading habits and how they've taken them on a mind of their own recently, I've decided to start mid-month wrap-ups so that you wouldn't have to sit through 20 to 30 minutes of me talking about books. My greatest fear about doing something like this is that as soon as I start this, I'll only read like 2 or 3 books every 2 weeks, but that's probably an insubstantial fear. So this will be my first mid-month wrap-up, and it's October, which is appropriate because I like scary October-y books, which may have been what kind of escalated reading this month, because there's so many good books that I just wanted to get to that I had things. Right now, as it stands, mid-October, I have read 13 books, and I'm gonna tell you about each and every one of them. The first book I finished this month was Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay. This is a collection of her essays that she originally published online about her habits of being a feminist, but not being the traditional feminist that you think about when you think of feminist, which has somehow become this weird derogatory term. She talks about how she loves pink, how she loves shopping, how she loves just being a girly girl, but at the same time, she wants to stand toe-to-toe with the boys. And I like that concept. So all of these little essays kind of take on, or supposedly take on, this topic of being a feminist who sometimes contradicts herself. I liked the essays, I connected with some of them. Others, I couldn't really understand how they fit in or what the point of them was. But overall, it was a very decent read for feminist essays. And so I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. Next, I listened to Rebel Belle by Rachel Hawkins with my roommate because we were doing some stuff and we wanted to listen to an audiobook, and I already had that one checked out, so we listened to it together. Rebel Belle is about Harper, who is the stereotypical teenager Southern belle who is just waiting for her big moment. She's an overachiever. She wants everything in its place. One day, at a dance, things just go horribly wrong. She ends up with these mystical powers that makes her a paladin. A paladin who needs to protect her arch enemy, David. David and her have never gotten along for whatever reason. She's not even sure herself. She finds herself having to be his protector because he is some kind of seer. She is not happy about this in the least. So this book is mainly her adventures of coming to terms with what all of this means. It was an entertaining listen. I found it very, very predictable. It's kind of that standard YA trope of girl becomes special, meets boy, there's the love triangle, things happen in the stereotypical way. And unfortunately, I started to draw a lot of parallels between this book and Buffy. That might just be all in my head, but because Buffy has always had a strong place in my life, I grew up on it, I couldn't pull myself away from the Buffy mentality of preppy girl suddenly gets superpower and is forced to be the one and give up her life, and she fights it tooth and nail. Yeah, and then the end of this book, I'm gonna try not to give spoilers, but the end of this book has a lot of parallels to the end of the whole Buffy TV series on a few major points. But overall, it was a good read, so I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. Next, I did a reread of A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. I absolutely adore this book because Douglas Adams writes in a way that my brain thinks, which is pure nonsense, but nonsense that makes sense. I don't know if that's possible, but it is. So Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is a story about how Earth is demolished. Arthur Dent is a human who managed to survive through his friend Ford destruction of Earth to create a galactic highway. Apparently we were in the way. Arthur has to come to terms with the fact that his home planet no longer exists, that his best friend was apparently an alien, and he has to hitchhike around the galaxy to find someplace for himself. Now in the story, there's certain things about the earth and trying to figure out things and hooking up with other people, but Adams writes in this way where it's just entertaining. I always love going back to this book. I haven't read others of the series, which is why I did this reread, so I can pick up the others in the series, because I need to do that. I need to do that. And because I love this book so much, I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. And I finally picked up A Wrath and the Dawn by Renee Ahdieh. This is a wonderful retelling of Arabian Nights, where Scheherazade volunteers to become the next bride who supposedly is supposed to be killed when dawn comes. She takes this position because she wants to get revenge for her friend who has recently become a bride and been killed. But in the process of trying to get this revenge, she gets to know the king, and she starts this very conflicted journey of trying to figure out what she wants to do, how this is supposed to work, and starts to dig up the truth of why all of this is happening in the first place. This is the start of a series, so it ended in a place where I wanted more, which is probably good for a series. The character depth in this read is what I enjoyed most. There wasn't anything truly surprising because Arabian Nights is one of those stories that I've just always listened to and I've always read. I've got several retellings of this, so it wasn't a new story plot. There was some new characters added. Ahdieh gave the characters backstories and depth that were just so intriguing, and I can't wait to see where she goes with this series. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. Then, in my task to read all the books on my bookshelf, I read this book. This is The Dream Hunter by Sherilyn Kenyon. This is one of those books that I sometimes put the back so nobody knows that I secretly kind of enjoy this read sometimes. They're junk food for my brain. That's all they are. This book is about Megira, who is on a quest to find Atlantis. Her father used to be the one who has always dedicated his life to finding Atlantis. She shunned him because she thought the whole thing was ridiculous, but upon his death, she makes a promise to continue the search for Atlantis. While this is happening, she starts to have dreams about this man, Eric. Very feeling dreams. Eric is actually an immortal being who preys on dreams, and that's how he feels, because in his normal state, he can't feel anything. But when he walks in human dreams, he gets all the feels. He decides to make a pact with Hades to become human for a certain length of time so that he can spend time with her. But the problem is, the trade-off for becoming human is bringing back her soul to Hades. This is part of a whole series that she has done that I have never read in order, that contains a lot of the gods in human form. You get Persephone, you get Athena, you get Zeus, and you get that whole like clash of the titans going on in this book, and it is basically just set around Eric and Megira and them really liking each other. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars because I like to be entertained with pure nonsense sometimes, but I understand that there isn't really anything in-depth or really important in this book. So the other week, me and my roommate and my boyfriend decided to go see a movie. We also decided to sneak in some candy. Problem was, there wasn't a bag to sneak the candy in. So we stopped at Barnes & Noble, and I'm like, I'm gonna just pick up one book. One book. This'll be a thing. I just pick up a book. Well, it didn't really end with me just picking up one book. There was several books. But that's not the point. One of the books I did pick up was The Sleeper and the Spindle by Neil Gaiman and illustrated by Chris Riddell. I've seen this all over BookTube, and it's a fairy tale retelling with both Snow White and Sleeping Beauty and absolutely gorgeous illustrations. I mean, people just kept on showing this to me, and then I saw it on the shelf. I mean, guys, look at the cover. It's just, with the kind of reads I read, I had to pick it up. So this is a retelling of Snow White, who is actually on a quest to save Sleeping Beauty. It is written in such an old world fairy tale style that I just absolutely enjoyed it, and it shall forever have a place in my collection. Gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. And you guys all know that I've been slowly going through the Chronicles of Narnia, and I finally got through the Voyage of the Dawn Treader again. This is written in kind of the epic quest style, and I do enjoy it, and yeah, it's a 4 out of 5 stars. If you follow my channel, you saw that I just recently put up a review for Madness SoDiscreet by Minnie McGinnis, because I just liked this book and I needed to let you guys all know what I thought about it after I finished it. This is a book about a girl named Grace who, for family secret reasons, ends up in an insane asylum where inhumane things happen. She eventually ends up partnering with a doctor who gets her out of this asylum so that they can solve crimes together, because that's a logical thing to do. Go to an insane asylum, meet a doctor, and become a crime-fighting, awesome person. I give more information in my review, so I will link it up above and down below so you can check it out. But I really enjoyed this read, even though it was nothing that I expected, and I kind of picked it up because of this beautiful cover. That photograph was done by Brooke Shedden. But I did like the read, so I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I then picked up The Diviners by Libba Bray because it's another one of those books that I've been seeing all over the place, and I found it at my library, so why not? The Diviners is about Evie, who lives in the 1920s and can see things by touching objects. This unfortunately gets her in trouble back home, and she gets shipped off to New York with her uncle. She's okay with this because she is just a girl who knows what she wants out of the world. She's an independent woman. While she's in New York living with her uncle, there is a serial killer on the loose. And then Evie starts to discover that she may be able to help figure out what is going on with the help of her touchy-feely magical powers. In Evie's world, there are people called the Diviners who all have these special magical abilities. There are several of them in New York, and then their stories just start to intertwine, which is really, really interesting. It is a dark mystery kind of book, and it does have a supernatural twist. I really enjoyed this book, and I had forgotten how much I liked the way that Libba Bray writes, and it was great. I want to get my hands on the next book, so you will probably be seeing that in a wrap-up in the future. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I want to know! I want to know! I finally got around to reading Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. I stole this book from my brothers. I saw it was one of those classic books that a lot of sci-fi nerds have read before. I had not picked up this book. I did see the movie forever ago, so I knew the premise of what this book was. I just didn't realize I would get so wrapped up in this story and so frustrated. Ender's Game is about a boy named Ender who is a third, which means he's a third child, which is usually illegal, but because the government is trying to raise super genius leaders for their military, they said, yes, you two people are geniuses. I want you to breed me some more geniuses. So Ender ends up at a military school so he can become a military leader in this battle with aliens that had at one point tried to invade us, and we want to stop them before they try again. I did not realize how young Ender was when he started in this military academy. He was 6 years old, and it follows his life. The way they treated these children in this school and how they found these children to put in these schools, I had so many issues with, because me, as myself, I'm like, let children be children. Don't pit them against each other. Don't try to create chaos where there doesn't need to be chaos. And he doesn't need to be having these kind of thoughts. He's 6 freaking years old. But no, they just messed with Ender's world, trying to mold and manipulate him into a leader that they needed. So yeah, I had lots of feelings about this book, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. After reading Diviners by Libba Bray, I remembered the other books by her that I had on my bookshelf. And that was A Great and Terrible Beauty and Rebel Angel. I had started the Gemma Doyle trilogy forever ago. I didn't even remember what most of the contents of these books were. In fact, I'd forgotten I had even read Rebel Angel, which I apparently had after rereading it and having those weird deja vu moments of being, oh my gosh, I did read this, didn't I? Way to go, April, for forgetting what you read. So I went back to these books to reread them so I could read the last in the trilogy, which is The Sweet Far Thing. And it's a great read for October, I guess, because it does have that dark feel to it, though it isn't really until the third book where you get the really creepy feels. But this series is about Gemma Doyle, whose mother is killed while they are living in India, and so they go back to England where she starts boarding school in London. While she's in boarding school, she starts to learn things about this secret society called the Order. She makes friends with several of the girls and starts to unlock this weird magical power that she has. She sees visions and it leads her to this completely other realm where anything is possible. All of this, of course, leads to danger and intrigue and murder and mystery and all that kind of dark stuff that the Fae-like realms always leads to in these kind of books. And it's a really, really enjoyable read. However, the one gripe I have about the series is about the Gemma and Pippa Felicity friendship. Just when you think that the friendship is evolving into a place of trust and true friendship, they always do something extremely selfish, and yet somehow it's kind of sort of forgotten later on, and it drives me nuts. All of them are driven by pure selfishness, and they can't seem to see beyond their own crap. I understand that they're teenagers and they're 16, 17 in this series, but there are times where I'm just like, why? You know it's gonna happen. You just don't want to see it. You blame people over here for wanting everything for their own self when you yourself are doing the same thing. But as much as I gripe about that, I really like this series, and I overall gave everything a 4 stars because it just kept on pulling me back in. I don't know if you can hear the cats running upstairs right now. I really hope you can't. Just letting you know that. So that was my mid-October wrap-up, in which I explained the 13 books that I have read so far. I'm sure there's going to be 13 more because 13 is a good number for October. This should happen. My goal is going to be 13 more books for me to talk about in the next wrap-up. I heart your beautiful faces. Bye.
This is a thumbnail. I am now posing for a thumbnail. Stop talking. Is this a thumbnail? I'm glad this is a thumbnail.